Well, the second question, the school district in March approved the sale of the former Coffinberry school property to a housing developer without requiring that a specific amount of green space be set aside for the public. Now, the developer has offered one parcel of land, but some Coffinberry residents said that, I guess it was 10 years ago, school officials and city officials indicated that 3 parcels of green space would be set aside if the land were sold. And I'm going to ask what your position is on this, and should the school board have guaranteed more green space. But first, I do want to point out that, Kellie, you are active in the Coffinberry Collaborative, which is an organization that has been addressing this issue.
I wouldn't call us an organization. I would call us a group of concerned residents. But organization is a little too formal, I would say. But yes, you are correct.
Okay. So what is your position on this, and should the school board have guaranteed more green space?
Well, having just fully disclosed that I live fairly close proximity to the school property, it has been an issue that has consumed a lot of time and I've been very passionate about. I believe that the failure of leadership happened in 2005, unfortunately, when we did not have adequate documentation. There were lots of verbal agreements, and unfortunately, those verbal agreements eroded over time. But regardless of anybody's position on green space, I think it's important to understand it's the way in which the Board of Education conducted the property sale that many residents have an issue with. It was sold for a sale price of $435,000. The Board of Education did not adequately advertise it for the required 30 days and put it out for public notice. They public noticed it in the Westlife, which is a small circulating newspaper. They did not bother to advertise in the Plain Dealer. There was no for sale sign on the property. The Board of Education has a fiduciary responsibility to our district to make sure that that sale of property garnered as much money as possible. And I believe that had they been more open and transparent about the property being available for sale, we could have gotten significantly more money for that property and possibly had, enough money to not worry about maybe carving out a portion of it for the kids to play on. But regardless of the green space issue, the sale was not handled properly by the Board of Education, and that is a concern.
Okay. Mr. Allen?
One of the things that I always, in learning more about the functions of a school board, one of the things I'm really intrigued about is that the communication piece of this, and also their responsibility that there may be times that they have to make difficult decisions that may not necessarily align with all parties involved. And that's where the communication really becomes key. If the sale of the property, if that was the only way you could sell that property, I guess I could understand, I wouldn't agree with it, but I can understand that that may be the only way that they could have done so. They do have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they receive the absolute most in value that is owed to the community and to the students so that we can work on program development. Now, there was an agreement that we had talked about with the 2005 master plan that allocated, and there was talk about green space. Now, if there's already talk about that, then you should do your due diligence, you should do your homework, as you should do with the superintendent look, to make sure that all parties involved have an opportunity to step up and talk and share their views on it, as well as look and say, hey, you had this master plan that allocated green space. Maybe we should do something with that and honor our students. Now, the school board doesn't have responsibilities just within the walls of the school. The community is interconnected with the school, so we have a responsibility outside the walls of those schools as well.
Okay.
Can I follow up to
Yes.
Rabon's comments?
Mm-hmm.
And he brought up 2 really excellent points, and I'm completely in agreement with him. And I think communication is a really key factor that was missing in that whole controversy. They had used a series of executive sessions to make decisions about the sale. And while executive sessions for the sale of property are allowed under Ohio's sunshine laws, they didn't meet the full intent of the law. And that was executive sessions for the sale of property are allowed if the discussion in public would have given a competitive advantage. And we know for a fact that there was no competitive advantage to be had because the appraisal report of the property was given to at least one of the developers the morning of the sale. So it kind of made everything moot about them wanting to be confidential about the appraisal. So it really should have been done in daylight. And that's one of the things that really is important to me as a Board of Education member, if I were to be elected, is making sure that executive sessions are used only when absolutely necessary for the most sensitive of issues. Open government is the best form of government.
Okay. Did you have follow-up, or should we move on to the next question?
No, I think that covered it.
Okay, all right, very good.